So this woman is about to try and steal Coca-Cola secrets and sell them to Pepsi for $1.5 million. Now, her name is Joya, and Joya's got a great job. She works at Coca-Cola as the secretary to the global brand director. But Joya's got a problem. She feels like she works hard for Coke, but she also feels like she never gets the appreciation she deserves. She feels like everyone there treats her like she's stupid. And one day, Joya's had enough. She is done with Coca-Cola, but she's not gonna quit. Instead, she comes up with a plan to screw them over and make herself a little bit of money. She's gonna steal Coca-Cola's valuable trade secrets, like their secret formulas and stuff, and she's gonna sell them to Pepsi. Now, obviously, Pepsi is Coca-Cola's biggest competitor, and they could really benefit from getting their hands on some of these trade secrets. And the more Joya thinks about it, the more she commits herself to this idea. And her position at the company gives her access to all sorts of confidential materials, top secret marketing plans and new product samples, stuff like that. But there's an issue. Joya can't sell the secrets to Pepsi herself because she works for Coke and they'll be able to trace the crime back to her. So she decides she needs a middleman. And one day she's at Thanksgiving dinner with a bunch of people and one of her friends is there. This guy, Edmund. So she pulls Edmund aside and she floats the idea to him, like, I'm gonna steal Coke's secrets and sell them to Pepsi. And Edmund, he's an ex-convict. He recently got out of prison. So when he hears Joya's idea, he's like, aye. Then later, while she's at work, Joya collects copies of some highly confidential materials, and she starts taking these documents home with her. She also copies some documents onto some jump drives, and she sneaks those home as well. Then, a few weeks later, Edmund goes to her house and she shows him the goods. She's like, look what I got! So Edmund, he thinks about it and eventually he's on board. He's like, I think I know someone who could help us. And that is when he calls his friend in New York City to help him. This guy, Ibrahim. And Ibrahim is a guy who went to prison with Edmund, so he has no issue getting involved in this. So Edmund calls him and he fills him in, and a few months later, Ibrahim flies from New York City all the way down to Atlanta to check out the materials Joya stole in person. And Ibrahim sees the stolen materials and he's like, well, these look legit. And so they move forward with their plan to sell these Coca-Cola secrets. And first, Ibrahim writes a letter to Pepsi, claiming he's a high-level employee at Coca-Cola. And in this letter, he offers Pepsi the opportunity to buy Coke's confidential trade secrets from him. Then they put it into an official Coca-Cola envelope that Joya had stolen, and they mail it to the Senior Vice President of Insights and Innovation at Pepsi. A few days later, Senior Vice President, he gets the letter, and he reads it, and he's like, what the fuck is this? And even though Pepsi could really benefit from these stolen Coca-Cola secrets, this exec decides that this is all very wrong, and he wants no part of it. So what does he do? He faxes this information right over to the execs at Coca-Cola and basically snitches on these guys. And the execs at Coca-Cola are like, what the fuck? And they immediately report all of this to the FBI. So now the FBI is involved, and they set up this whole sting operation, and they get a special agent to pose as a Pepsi executive and go undercover. And we'll just call this fake Pepsi executive Undercover Agent. So Undercover Agent calls the number on the letter, and Ibrahim picks up. And Undercover Agent tells him, yeah, we here at Pepsi are interested in the Coca-Cola secrets you got. So Ibrahim, Edmund, and Joya are like, hell yeah, we did it! We're gonna be rich! And the next day, Ibrahim faxes Undercover Agent a 14-page sample of the highly classified Coca-Cola secrets. And he's like, there's a lot more where that came from, buddy. But Ibrahim isn't exactly sure Undercover Agent is really serious about this deal. And he wants him to prove that he is. So he asks Undercover Agent to send him $10,000. But Undercover Agent's slick. He doesn't send him anything. He just keeps stringing him along for like weeks. Until a few weeks into the negotiations, Ibrahim is really trying to make this deal go through. So he offers to get Pepsi, aka Undercover Agent, a product sample, like a flavor of soda that hasn't been released yet. Now, by this point, Undercover Agent and the rest of the FBI have been working hard behind the scenes to crack this case, and they've been looking at Coke employees who could potentially be involved. One of the employees they've been low-key looking at is Joya, because she's one of the few people who has access to all this confidential material. So, in the Coca-Cola building, they set up hidden cameras near her desk. And later, those cameras end up capturing footage of her stealing documents and putting them in her bag. And they also catch her stealing a product sample. Which, in this case, allegedly, the product sample she steals is called Coca-Cola Black, which is Coke infused with coffee. And at this time, Coca-Cola Black hasn't been released to the public or even announced yet. But anyway, then undercover agent reaches out to Ibrahim and he asks him to set up a time when they can meet. And Ibrahim and Edwin and Joya, they have no idea the FBI is onto them. And they have no idea this Pepsi exec they're talking to is an undercover FBI agent. So when he reaches out to them to set up a time to meet, they're like pumped. They're like, hell yeah! Then the day of the meet comes, and Ibrahim drives to the airport because that's where they're supposed to meet. An undercover agent is there, and Ibrahim gives him a bag of confidential documents and a glass bottle with the product sample in it. And in return, undercover agent hands him a yellow box of Girl Scout cookies. Now, instead of cookies in this box, it's actually got $30,000 stuffed in it. I don't know why they used a Girl Scout cookie box, but anyway, and then he tells him, and you'll get $45,000 more after we analyze the product sample. And then Edmund picks Ibrahim up from the airport, and Ibrahim's like, bro, it worked! And he hands Edmund his cut of the money, and he also gives him Joya's cut of the money. And by the way, Edmund allegedly pockets a couple of grand from Joya's cut of the money before he gives it to her. So, never trust a thief, I guess. So anyway, then the FBI starts wiretapping Ibrahim's phone, and they're recording all the calls and messages between Ibrahim and Joya and Edmund, and they're getting more and more footage of Joya sneaking documents into her bag. So their case is about to be airtight. And then the trio makes another move. Ibrahim emails undercover agent and he tells him that he has 20 more highly confidential materials in his possession. And undercover agent's like, cool, we want them. And they start negotiating the price. An undercover agent, posing as this Pepsi exec, he tells Ibrahim he'll pay him $1.5 million for these new Coca-Cola secret documents. And Ibrahim is like, fuck yeah! And so they set a time to meet up and make this exchange. A few weeks later, the time has come to finally meet. And Edmund drives Ibrahim to the meeting spot at a restaurant at the local Marriott Hotel, and Ibrahim goes inside while Edmund waits in the car. And inside the restaurant, Ibrahim sits down at the table with undercover agent, and they chat a little, and they agree on the amount one more time. $1.5 million. Then they shake hands, and Ibrahim leaves, and he walks toward Edmund's car, and then, kaboom! Suddenly, they're surrounded by FBI agents, and bam! Ibrahim gets arrested, and then bam! Edmund also gets arrested, and then bam! The FBI goes and arrests Joya too. Here's Joya's mugshot, and here's Ibrahim's mugshot. And I couldn't actually find a mugshot for Edmund or any pictures of him online for that matter. But anyway, they're all charged with conspiracy to commit theft of trade secrets, and Joya gets sentenced to 8 years in prison, Ibrahim gets sentenced to 5 years in prison, and Edmund gets no prison time because he testified against the other two. So, shout out to Coke and Pepsi, I guess. And a huge shout out to Leonardo.ai for sponsoring this video. If you make videos and you want to make really badass art for those videos, like this, or like this, like look at how cool that is. Sign up for Leonardo.ai.